The first time Michael walked into the barbershop and saw him, he almost turned around and walked back out. It wasn't like him to get rattled. He was a man of routine, same breakfast every morning, same walk through the park, same Tuesday haircut at McKay's barbershop. But that Tuesday felt different the moment he stepped through the door. Behind the second chair stood someone new. The young man moved with a quiet confidence. His sleeves rolled just enough to show off strong, capable forearms. He had neatly trimmed dark hair, a clean jawline framed by a few days of purposeful stubble, and eyes so calm they seemed to slow down time. Their eyes met for only a second, but it was enough to throw Michael off balance. "Morning," the man said, his voice low and warm. "First time here?" Michael shook his head, offering a polite smile. "No, been coming for years. Just don't think I've seen you before." "Ah," the man chuckled. "I just started a couple weeks back. Name's Leo." He extended a hand. Michael hesitated a beat before shaking it. Leo's grip was firm, steady, but something about it lingered longer than a casual greeting. Michael told himself it was nothing, just a polite welcome, but the small jolt that shot through his chest told a different story. "Take a seat," Leo said, gesturing to the chair. Michael sat, trying not to think too much. As Leo draped the cape around his shoulders, his fingers brushed the side of Michael's neck, lightly, almost imperceptibly, but somehow intentional. "So," Leo asked, picking up a comb, "what are we doing today?" "Just a trim," Michael replied quickly. "Nothing fancy." Leo nodded, beginning to run the comb through his hair with slow, deliberate strokes. The shop was unusually quiet, no background chatter, no sports banter from the other chairs, just the soft snip of scissors and the occasional hum of clippers. Michael kept his eyes on the mirror, trying not to look directly into Leo's gaze reflected there, but failing more than once. "You seem a little tense," Leo said casually, not looking up. Michael let out a half-hearted chuckle. "Long week. Haircuts are supposed to help with that," Leo murmured, his fingers brushing the nape of Michael's neck again. "Though I guess it depends on who's doing the cutting." Michael's heart thudded. The words hung in the air between them, wrapped in something unspoken, something gentle, but undeniably present. When the trim was finished, Michael thanked him, paid, and left without another word. But as he stepped outside, a strange warmth lingered at the back of his neck. He walked slower than usual, the autumn breeze unable to quite cool the way his chest felt tight and full. That night, as he lay in bed staring at the ceiling, all he could think about was the way Leo had looked at him in the mirror. And for reasons he couldn't explain, he already knew he'd be back next week. Michael stood outside the barbershop longer than he cared to admit. It had only been 6 days since his last visit. His hair still sat neatly trimmed, not a strand out of place. There was no logical reason to be back so soon. And yet there he was, hands in his jacket pockets, heart thudding like a man about to make a confession. He told himself it was nothing, just curiosity. Maybe Leo had done something slightly uneven. Maybe he'd left a hairline too sharp, or a neckline unfinished, or maybe, just maybe, Michael missed something he couldn't quite name. The bell above the door jingled as he finally stepped inside. The shop was quiet again. No clients, no banter, just Leo standing behind the same chair, carefully cleaning his clippers. He looked up at the sound of the bell and smiled. "Back already?" he asked, eyebrows lifting playfully. Michael cleared his throat. "Yeah, figured I could use a quick cleanup." Leo tilted his head, eyes flicking briefly to Michael's hair. "Didn't I just cut your hair last week?" Michael gave a sheepish shrug. "Guess I'm getting picky in my old age." Leo didn't push, he just patted the chair. "Well, I'm not one to turn down a familiar face. Have a seat." Michael sat, this time more aware of the way the leather chair held him. How close Leo stood behind him. There was no rush today. No other barbers, no distractions, just them, and the quiet hum of a fan in the corner. Leo's fingers combed through his hair again, slow, sure, steady. Michael closed his eyes briefly, letting the touch settle something restless inside him. "You're quieter today," Leo said after a moment. "Am I?" Michael replied, eyes meeting Leo's in the mirror. Leo gave a small smile. "Not a bad thing, just different." Michael considered that. Different. Yeah, that word fit. They fell into easy conversation, about music, about how fall seemed to show up early this year, about nothing at all. But beneath it, something else stirred, something unspoken, but felt. At one point, Leo's hand brushed the back of Michael's neck again. This time, he didn't flinch. He didn't pretend it hadn't happened. "You always this careful with everyone's haircut?" Michael asked, voice softer than he expected. Leo met his gaze in the mirror, smile fading into something more thoughtful. "Not with everyone," he said. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was thick with meaning, charged with the kind of tension that felt more electric than uncomfortable. When the trim, if it could even be called that, was done, Michael didn't move right away. He lingered in the chair, searching for something to say. Before he could speak, Leo stepped to the side, crossed his arms, and offered a small grin. "Coffee?" he asked. Michael blinked. "Coffee?" Leo shrugged. "Figured you didn't really come in for a haircut." Michael laughed, nervously, but genuine. "Yeah, okay." As they stepped out into the crisp autumn air, side by side, Michael realized he hadn't stopped smiling since he walked in. And maybe, just maybe, that was the real reason he came back. The cafe Leo chose was tucked away on a quiet side street, just far enough from downtown to feel like a secret. It wasn't flashy, just a few small tables, the smell of cinnamon and roasted beans hanging in the air, and a soft jazz tune playing in the background. Michael followed Leo inside, still unsure what this was. Just two men grabbing coffee, or something that had already begun to mean more. They settled into a booth near the window, steaming mugs between them. Leo stirred his black coffee absently, eyes flicking up now and then to meet Michael's. The silence didn't feel awkward. If anything, it felt full, like a page waiting to be written. "So," Leo said finally, his voice low, steady, "tell me something most people don't know about you." Michael blinked. "You go straight for the deep cuts." "Huh?" Leo smiled, slow and easy. "Small talk's never been my thing." Michael leaned back, wrapping both hands around his cup. For a moment, he thought about brushing the question off with a joke, but something about Leo made him want to answer. "I used to paint," he said quietly. "Oil on canvas. Nothing fancy. Just landscapes, faces, the quiet stuff." Leo's expression softened. "Why'd you stop?" Michael shrugged, eyes drifting toward the window. "Life got noisy. Work, bills, people needing things from me. Somewhere along the way, I forgot what I needed." Leo nodded, like he understood that kind of forgetting. "You ever think about picking it back up? Lately?" Michael glanced at him. "Yeah, more than I'd like to admit." Leo smiled again, this time with something gentler behind it. "I think you should." They fell into a rhythm after that. Stories flowed, of childhood adventures, of awkward first crushes, of heartbreaks and hopes they hadn't said out loud in years. Leo spoke about growing up in a city where he never quite fit, of finding solace in quiet spaces, of always feeling like he was waiting for something real. At one point, the conversation shifted, naturally, but unmistakably, toward attraction. Leo traced the rim of his cup with one finger, his gaze steady. "I've always known what I like," he said carefully, "but I've learned to move slowly. Not because I'm unsure, just, sometimes, I don't know how the other person feels." Michael's breath caught. He didn't need to ask who Leo meant. "I've never," he started, then stopped. "I mean, I've never been with a man before." Leo didn't flinch, didn't shift away. He just nodded, waiting. "But I've been thinking about it." Michael continued, his voice dropped a notch. "About you." The words landed between them, quiet but certain. Leo didn't smile right away. He just looked at Michael, his expression unreadable, but his eyes warm. "No pressure," Leo said softly. "Just honesty." Michael let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. "Feels good to say it." And it did, for the first time in a long while. Michael felt like he wasn't hiding, from Leo. Or from himself. Michael didn't plan on going back so soon. But by Thursday afternoon, his car was already parked outside the shop. The ridiculous part? His hair still looked fine. No one would have guessed he'd just had it trimmed a week ago, twice. But that wasn't why he was here. When he stepped inside, the soft chime of the bell echoed through the mostly empty space. A wave of warmth rushed over him when he saw Leo, hunched over his tools, cleaning them with the kind of focused calm that had become so familiar. Leo looked up and grinned. Well, you again." Michael rubbed the back of his neck. "Hope I'm not becoming a nuisance." Leo chuckled. "Only if you're expecting a third haircut in 10 days. Michael hesitated, then shrugged. Maybe I just like the company. That quiet grin of Leo's widened just slightly. He nodded toward the chair. Have a seat. Michael sat, feeling more nervous than he wanted to admit. The shop was quiet again. Just the faint hum of an old ceiling fan overhead and the distant tick of the clock on the wall. No background chatter, no distractions. Leo didn't reach for scissors this time. Instead, he moved behind Michael and ran his fingers gently through his hair, combing it with nothing more than touch. The sensation sent a wave of calm, and something else, through him. You feel different today, Leo said softly. Michael swallowed. How so? Leo met his eyes in the mirror. I don't know, like you're letting go of something. Michael held his gaze. Maybe I am. Silence settled over them again, but this time it was charged with something tender. Unspoken. I've been thinking about what you said, Michael murmured. At the cafe, Leo's hands stilled for a moment before continuing their gentle pass through his hair. Which part? Michael gave a half smile. The part about moving slowly. About being honest. Leo leaned slightly closer. His voice dropped, low and warm. And? Michael turned his head slightly. Enough to meet Leo's eyes more directly, not just through the mirror this time. I want to keep going, he said quietly. With you. I don't know where it's headed. And I'm scared out of my mind, but I want this. Leo's expression didn't change right away, but his hands slid from Michael's hair to rest lightly on his shoulders, a familiar weight. But somehow more grounded now. More sure. You don't have to rush anything, Leo said gently. Michael shook his head. I don't feel rushed. I feel like I've been waiting for this longer than I knew. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Leo stepped around the chair, standing in front of him. Slowly, carefully, he reached out and placed 2 fingers beneath Michael's chin, lifting his face slightly. Their eyes locked. And then, finally, their lips met. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't dramatic. Just a quiet, steady moment, warm, real, and full of promise. When they parted, Leo smiled. Still scared? Michael exhaled, a soft laugh escaping, terrified, but not enough to walk away. Leo brushed a thumb along his cheek. Good, then stay a little longer. And he did. Dinner at Leo's place felt different than Michael expected. It wasn't the food, though Leo had whipped up a roast chicken and buttery mashed potatoes like a pro, or the wine. Or even the music playing low in the background. It was the ease, the comfort, the way conversation flowed without effort. The way Leo laughed at Michael's old college stories like he'd known him for years. After dinner, Leo rose and walked toward the record player. A gentle, slow tune started spinning. Michael raised an eyebrow. Seriously? A slow dance? Leo turned, that soft grin on his face again. It's not about the dance. It's about the moment. Michael hesitated only a beat before standing. Leo took his hand and pulled him close. One arm around his waist, the other resting gently on his shoulder. They moved slowly, swaying more than dancing, their bodies finding a rhythm neither of them needed to think about. You're holding back, Leo whispered near his ear. Michael opened his eyes, meeting Leo's gaze. That look, the one that stripped him bare without judgment, was there again. He swallowed, voice barely a murmur. Not anymore. Their lips met again, this time with more certainty. More hunger laced with tenderness. As the music faded into background hum, Leo pulled him in close. No words, just presence, just warmth. Later, they lay on the couch. Leo's arm tucked beneath Michael's head, fingers idly tracing lazy circles across his arm. Michael stared at the ceiling, his mind oddly still. I haven't felt this peaceful in a long time, he murmured. Leo smiled without opening his eyes. Me neither. The next afternoon, they went for a walk downtown. The sun was bright, the sidewalks alive with chatter and movement. Leo walked close beside him, not touching, not pressing, but there. Solid, present. And then it happened. Michael? The voice came from behind. Michael turned and felt his stomach twist. It was Darren, a former coworker, someone who always had a bit too much to say and never knew when to stop. Darren looked from Michael to Leo, then back again. A smirk played on his lips. Didn't expect to see you out here, like this. The words weren't cruel, not exactly, but they carried weight, judgment, curiosity disguised as friendliness. Michael's instincts kicked in, without meaning to. He stepped back, just enough to put distance between himself and Leo. He saw it in Leo's eyes. The flicker, the understanding, and the hurt. Darren didn't linger. Catch you around, he said, walking off. Michael stood frozen. Leo didn't speak, not on the sidewalk or the quiet walk back to his apartment. Inside, Leo leaned against the kitchen counter, arms folded. So that's how it is? He asked, his voice calm but tight. Michael opened his mouth. Leo, you don't have to explain. Leo cut in. I get it, but I'm not built to be somebody's secret. Michael. The silence that followed was heavier than anything words could fill. I need to know what this really is to you. Leo added, softer now. Michael didn't have an answer. Not yet. So Leo walked away, and Michael let him. But the second the door closed, he knew. He'd made a mistake. The next few days felt gray. Michael went through the motions, coffee, work, dinner, but nothing landed right. Every empty chair reminded him of Leo. Every quiet evening echoed with words he hadn't said. His phone stayed silent. No texts, no calls, and he didn't send any either. Not because he didn't want to, but because he was afraid of what Leo might say, or not say at all. He sat across from his best friend, Alan, nursing a beer he barely touched. You've been off, Alan said bluntly. Want to tell me what's going on? Michael hesitated, staring into the foam at the top of his glass. I've been seeing someone. Alan raised an eyebrow. Okay, and? It's a guy, Michael added quietly. Alan didn't flinch, didn't make a joke, just blinked, then nodded. All right. Michael looked up. That's it? Yeah, Alan said. I mean, you're not robbing banks, right? You're dating someone. Good for you. Michael let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. I was so scared of what people would think. Alan leaned forward. People always think something. You want their thoughts to run your life? Those words echoed louder than they should have. That night, Michael couldn't sleep. He sat up, staring at the dim glow of the street lamp outside his window. He thought about the way Leo had looked at him, quiet, hopeful, hurt. He thought about the way he'd stepped back, how it must have felt like rejection. But it wasn't rejection, it was fear, and he was done letting fear drive. The next morning, Michael didn't wait. He dressed, grabbed his keys, and headed straight to the barber shop. The doorbell jingled as he stepped inside. Leo was mid-haircut, but he froze when he saw him. Michael didn't care who else was there. He stepped forward, heart pounding. I messed up, he said, loud enough for the room to hear. I let fear get the best of me. But I'm not hiding anymore. What I want is you. For a long second, Leo didn't move. Then he set down the clippers and walked to Michael. And kissed him. Not a whisper, not a maybe, but a yes. The cabin sat tucked into the woods like a secret waiting to be shared. Michael pulled off the winding road and parked beneath a canopy of tall pines. The late autumn sun filtered through the branches, scattering gold across the leaves. Beside him, Leo opened the passenger door and stepped out, stretching with a soft sigh. This place is perfect, he said, smiling as he looked around. Far from everything, Michael felt warmth bloom in his chest. That's the idea. Inside, the cabin was simple but cozy, a stone fireplace, soft wool blankets, and the scent of cedar clinging to every beam. Leo ran his fingers along the kitchen counter and nodded approvingly. You planned this, he said. Michael shrugged. Maybe. Leo stepped close, his voice soft. I like that. They spent the day wandering nearby trails, crunching through leaves, laughing about nothing. There was no timeline, no pressure, just the comfort of each other's presence. At one point, Michael reached for Leo's hand, and Leo took it without hesitation. That night, after a warm dinner and a glass of red wine, they curled up in front of the fireplace. The fire crackled gently, casting soft light across the room. Wrapped in a thick blanket, Michael leaned into Leo's shoulder, letting the silence stretch. I'm falling in love with you, Michael said quietly. Leo didn't respond right away. He turned, studying Michael's face like he was memorizing it. I've been in love with you, Leo whispered, from the moment you came back to the shop that second time. Michael's throat tightened. He reached for Leo's hand, lacing their fingers together. I want a life with you, he said, not just the weekends, the everydays. Leo leaned in and kissed him, slow, tender, full of everything they'd taken so long to say. Then let's build one. The months that followed felt like catching his breath after years of holding it. Michael no longer hesitated when introducing Leo as his partner. Some people were surprised, a few pulled away, but most simply smiled and stayed. Because Michael had never been this alive before. They built their life in quiet ways: movie nights, late breakfasts, Leo cutting Michael's hair at home while jazz played softly in the background. No declarations, no fireworks, just love. One Sunday morning, Michael sat in the familiar chair. Now in their shared living room, Leo combed through his hair with practiced hands. Smiling. "I like cutting your hair," he said. Michael smirked. "Good, you're stuck with me now." Leo chuckled, leaned down, and pressed a kiss to his temple. In that moment, Michael closed his eyes and breathed in deeply. He'd spent a lifetime searching for something he couldn't name. Now, sitting in a quiet room with the man he loved, he knew. He was finally home.